A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice on a Monday night. I hope you've all had a good weekend. Of course, it was wonderful, wasn't it? Started off fantastically well with West Ham winning at Luton on Friday night and going temporarily top of the league for what, I don't know, 12 hours or whatever it was. But it's good that we're up there, isn't it? Because it's a very, very different start to this season than it was last season. Fantastic start. And long may it rain. Going to talk a little bit about that later on and a little bit about the game as well. But first of all, before I go any further, I've got to thank you all. Over the weekend, I hit 4,000 subscribers. I'm shocked. I'm very surprised that so many of you want to listen to me rabbit on about nothing, but I'm very grateful anyway. So thank you all for subscribing. And if you're new to the show and you're watching it for the first time, do please hit that like button and the subscribe button and also the bell notification, because that lets you know when I'm next on. But thank you all. And I want to give a special shout out. I should have done this last weekend and I forgot to do so. I want to give a special shout out to a young man that said hello to me at the Premier Ring before the Chelsea game. Young Luke. He was sitting with one of my friends, Paul Williams, and he came over and said hello, and it was very nice. So hello to you, Luke. I hope you're well, and thank you for saying hello that day. Right, what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the international break. We're going to talk about Nayef Aguerd and the apparent interest in the player from the Saudis and what's going on there. I mean, should they really be allowed to continue trying to go for players? Their transfer window is opened until the 20th of September. Is that going to cause disruption? And then we're going to talk a little bit about Europe, because our European tour has been confirmed. And earlier today, the news about which games, the only game that we're likely to miss, well, depending on how many points you've got, and if you're a bondholder, the only game that we're likely to miss is our first away game against Freiburg. It was confirmed earlier today that the game against Olympiacos in Greece is going ahead and fans will be allowed to travel. Interesting, because as we probably know, there's another team playing that day, albeit at a different time. I know that, but it's all the converging in central Athens, because Panathinaikos and Olympiacos are not far away from the capital. But I'll talk about the teams that we're going to play and what that give you a little bit of lowdown about them as well. So let's go into the chat and say hello to whoever's here. Let's scroll all the way to the top as I usually do. Who we got for? Oh, good evening to you, Ed. How are you? Paranada to Nuno. Still to reveal all in 40 minutes or so. Will he say Paranada to Nuno? I don't know. What are you talking about? Have I missed something while I was putting this script together? You're going to have to let me know later on. Good evening, Graham. How are you? As loath as I am to admit it, Moyes is doing well, and long may it continue. And who knows, with our new players spurring on in others, we might actually become entertaining. Well, we'll certainly win games and we'll certainly frustrate teams. Will we become entertaining? Good evening, Chris. How are you? Thank you for joining, mate. Much appreciated. Good evening to you, Lee. How are you? I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Fatima. How are you? Stop spreading these fake news. I'm not. I only tell you what's actually out there. I hope it is fake news, because the Nayef Aguerd story came up just before I was whilst I was putting the show together, and I thought, well, that'll make a good headline, wouldn't it? So I'll tell you what I know about it, but it's not me that makes these things up. Good evening, Daniela. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. All happy with the football. Well, we absolutely are, aren't we? I mean, come on. It could have gone better. We should have beaten Bournemouth. Am I being greedy? But that game was there to be had. We could have been four games, 4 wins. God, we let that one slip, didn't we? Who else we got? Let's scroll down. Good evening, Pash. Pash. Good evening, Mr. Peters. I hope you're well. Alvarez is looking to be a gem of a purchase. A good window for us 2 seasons in a row. Yeah, very good window. I think he's the bond, isn't he, between the defense and the midfield. And I was saying before that the one thing that I think we're missing in the team is to have that kind of midfield general, and I think we've got it. Chris, Newcastle and Sheffield gave City a bit of a scare, so I think we shouldn't be scared of them. I agree. We shouldn't be scared of any team. I think we will set out to frustrate the hell out of them. Will we get anything out of it by doing that? I don't know. We sit back too far. and we might suffer a little bit. Man City, a little bit different to some of the teams that we played so far, and that includes Chelsea. Debbie and Mark, good evening to you. Heard a bet being placed in Brazil, still to be customary 5 minutes late, and to have trouble with the cats and the internet. No internet problems all day. The cats have been fed. They're with mum, so I'll leave them to it. Good evening, Irons Lady. How are you? Flog him. He's too weak in the air and other mistakes. Who are you trying to flog? And Montana, how are you? I'm not sure if I might sanction the move, but he looks shaky against Luton, very rush against Chelsea. If you get 50 mil, I will take it. Would we, though? Because, the trouble is we won't have anyone to replace him with. Yes, okay, we bought Mavropanos, and I guess people will argue that we've got other players that can play central defence. But would you let him go now that our window's shut and we don't have anybody to replace him with? I don't know. It's kind of a concern. I mean, who else might they come in for? It might not just be Aguerd. The Saudis may go for other players. Antonio apparently was rumoured to be linked to a Saudi link. What if they come in for him as well? Now that our window is shut. Good evening, usual. I hope you're well. Good evening, Mr. Duggan. How are you? Any news on potential takeovers? You know what? I didn't put that in the show, but I will talk about that. Because I've asked the question and I've been told quite categorically. I know what the big stories are today about the Qataris having pulled, well, not today, but over the last few days, the Qataris having pulled out of Man United, and now they're looking for West Ham. I get it. I get that they own the land around the stadium, etc. And it would kind of make sense in a lot of ways for them to go for West Ham United. But I've been told quite categorically that West Ham United, they're still building with regards to the Gold family and the Sullivan family. They've got the Gold daughter on the board now. And there's no plans. There are no plans to sell. Now, money does talk, of course, because you never know. If a Qatari offer came in, I don't know, what, billion? If they came in and said, here's £1 billion for West Ham United, are the current owners going to turn it down? Probably not. I know Kretinsky, as you all know, he's an investor. He'll probably go, nice bit of a nice earner here. Maybe some of the other owners, some of the other shareholders, like Trip Smith might go, that's a little bonus for me, a cash-in bonus for me. But it's really down to Sullivan, isn't it? It's down to Sullivan and partly to Gold. Okay, Kretinsky's the second largest shareholder now, but so if Sullivan doesn't want to sell, then they won't buy him outright. Maybe there could be a deal to buy some of the other shareholders out. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe do it incrementally and buy maybe Kretinsky out and buy maybe Trip Smith out and stuff like that. But as it stands, there are no plans for the Qataris to take over West Ham. But watch this space because, as I said, a good enough deal comes in, a good enough offer comes in, and who knows what could happen. But as it stands of today, yes, it kind of, I know the rumours have been lingering about the Qatari takeover. I don't know. It's been going on now for something like, this isn't new. It's been going on for something like 6 months or so, maybe longer. And other channels have reported on it quite a few times before. And I think Gonzo did a show on it this morning about the Qatari takeover. There are no plans for it to happen. As much as people want it to happen, there are no plans. I guess we've got to ask, what would you want? Would you be happy with a Qatari takeover? Is that the sort of thing we want at West Ham? We talk about our culture and our heritage being stripped away when we move from the Boleyn, etc. What would happen with a Qatari takeover? Would that get even worse? Would we become less of a West Ham United than we already are? I don't know. What could they do? Could they tear down the stadium, rebuild it, build a purpose-built football stadium, etc.? I'm sure they can. I'm sure they've got money coming out of their ears, haven't they? They could do anything they like. But I'm just not so sure. Do I want it? I don't know. There was a little debate on Twitter or X or whatever you call it now earlier today, and I kind of over the last few days, and I kind of made a few comments, and I said, I don't know, it's kind of blood money, isn't it? Would you really want Qatari money coming into West Ham, our tradition, etc.? And people argued, well, we've got a porn star that owns the club, and that's a fair play. But I guess if you're going to if you're going to make that much money, some of it is not going to be straightforward, is it? So I'm in two minds, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, I see the potential, I see the benefit, but at the same time, I'm not so sure if that would be right for West Ham. Let's see. Good evening, Montana. How are you? I would look in the French market for a replacement. We fared well without him for a long time last season. We shall be fine. You're talking about Aguerd again. Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because, as I said a moment ago, Nayef Aguerd apparently has been targeted today by the Saudis to go and play for Al-Ittihad. I can't pronounce it properly, but it's quite an interesting story, and I don't really know how much truth there is in it. It came out of nowhere, and I don't know. Do you want that to happen? People seem to be suggesting we'll be fine without him, but that means we're going to have to be reliant on Kurt Zuma, and we know his knees could go at any time, and also reliant on fantastic player, but aging player, Ogbonna. And as fantastic as Ogbonna is, I don't know. I think I'd be a little bit worried if we can get through the season by having Aguerd going. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd want it. I'm not sure I would favour it. I think it would be a bit of a gamble if we did it. If we bought in not just Mavropanos, but if we bought in yet another central defender, then I'd argue fair enough. People are saying, well, where does Mavropanos fit? Well, Mavropanos fits because he'll come in and he can play three at the back with Aguerd and Zuma, or he'll play in the cup competitions, etc., whilst he builds up his fitness and so on. So I kind of get why we bought Mavropanos, because it's more cover. So I'd be a little bit concerned. I don't know. I wouldn't be all for it if we were still had the transfer window open and then the Saudis came in for Aguerd. I'd say, all right, fair enough. Why not? But the fact that they're coming in now, if it's true, the fact that they're coming in now would concern me, because, like I said, who else would they target? What other player? I don't really care about other clubs, but what about West Ham United? What if they came for Qatar? What if they came for who else? Ben Rama. What if they came for Antonio? What would we do then? Would we say, yeah, okay, and yeah, okay again? I think I'd be a little bit concerned. I'd say to them, come back in January if you're really interested. And when we've got an opportunity to replace him, then we can talk. Montana. Oh, yes, we've done that one. Sorry. Chris, top six to give us Europe for a fourth season in a row and decent running cup competitions. I'd be happy with that. Wouldn't that be absolutely fantastic if that actually happened? It'd be a superb run for West Ham United. What would we say about David Moyes then? I did a show this morning about the conversation that David Moyes had with reporters in his pre-match press conference last week, and talking about Tim Steidten and how now they're getting on, and they kind of like, they're not going to agree on every player that we're linked to, and so on and so forth. And he seemed to allude to, the more I get to know Steidten, the more we work closer together, the better it will be. And I suggested, could this be a precursor to what might happen next season? Is Moyes done at West Ham United, or will he actually stay? Will West Ham United decide to keep him on? Karen Brady, she talked very highly of him in the TalkSport interview that she did the other day. And, he's very much respected at West Ham United. Okay, the football's not great. Well, we get that. I understand that. But in terms of what he's delivered to us, and imagine going into Europe for a fourth season in a row with him. Could we win something this season? I've got a sneaky feeling, that we might do. Mr. Doofus, good evening to you. These ragheads should have the same transfer window as everyone else. I 100% agree with you. It should be the same transfer window across the world. So we know what we're working with. We know when the window opens and we know when the window shuts. Why do it later? That just causes anxiety. It causes a bit of distress as well. And imagine how unsettled a player may be. If the Aguerd rumour is true, imagine how unsettled that player will be if he knows that a team wants to come in for him, offer him ridiculous amounts of money to play football, offer West Ham United a stupid sum of money for a transfer. Yes, I'd take it if it was really good money, because what you could do with that money speaks volumes. But at the moment, we can't do anything with it. Can we get by with Mavropanos and Ogbonna and Zuma? I don't know. Trini, good evening to you. Aguerd should be going nowhere. He's our best footballing centre-back and the only one who can pass long. If the player wants to stay, we should reject any bid for him. At this moment in time, I would totally agree. Debbie and Mark. Calvin, well, that's interesting, isn't it? I wasn't going to talk about the England squad because it kind of bores me to tears, to be quite honest with you. You kind of knew who was going to come in and who was going to be picked. Sorry, and it's kind of a little bit meh, isn't it? But why? When you've got, I remember when Southgate took over England, and he said quite clearly, "I'll pick players on merit. I'll pick players on form." He's thrown that right out of the window, and he's done what every other England manager has done over the years by just going with to type, picking the same players over and over again, whether they're in form or not. Yes, they may deliver against some of the lesser opponents that we've got coming up. But at the same time, how do this is the opportunity to find out if some of your other players are capable of doing it as well. Pick them, give them some game time and see what happens. The fact that he's picked the same old is shocking. Look, do I expect Bowen and Ward-Prowse and players like that to be picked? If they're on form, then yes. But the way that Southgate goes about his business, unfortunately, he picks, the same old, and it's a shame. Sorry, go back to your comments. Gavin Gimmett's got called up. You have two Englishmen who have started the Premier League in fine form, yet Phillips has warmed the bench, and there's Jordan Henderson. Southgate has lost his head. Well, you can argue Maguire, Henderson is now playing, you could almost call it non-league football over in South. Mind you, they've got some good players over there, but it's not quite as competitive as it is with the Premier League, is it? And Calvin Phillips, you're absolutely right. He's been warming the bench for God knows how long now, and yet he still gets picked. Montana, if me was a bit younger, would have loved him as a replacement. Good shout. I think we were talking about having him some time ago, maybe a couple of seasons ago. Montana again. Southgate will still call Maguire and Phillips if they got relegated to League One. No surprise there. Then do you blame Maguire for not wanting to leave Man United if he knows that his England place is assured? You're probably right. I mean, he's on the bench. Phillips is on the bench, and yet they get picked. Good evening, Howard. How are you? Evening all. Evening to you, mate. Best show on a Monday. Thank you very much. Between the hours of 9 and midnight about West Ham on any platform. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Who else have we got? Trini. Me is a solid, strong defender, but does not have the pace that Aguerd has or his passing ability. No, but he's very much a David Moyes type of footballer, isn't he? Good evening to you, Bill. How are you, mate? Thank you for joining. I hope you're well. Mr. Doofus, I don't want Saudi taking over the club. I kind of don't. I get it. I get why. You know what's going on with. We've had this for years. I'm trying to figure out. And look, please let me finish when I say this, because I know there'll be a bit of an outcry. I'm trying to figure out what the current owners have done wrong, apart from lying to us, of course, about the new stadium and making false promises that they should never have made. I think their biggest downfall is the fact that they actually had the balls, rightly or wrongly, to move us away from Upton Park. Because when they came out with all that crap of a class team and a class stadium or whatever it was going to, whatever Brady said at the time, they should never have made those promises. You can't make those promises. Look at Bowley at Chelsea, spent over £1 billion. You don't know if that's going to be successful or not, but at least he didn't come out and make the promise that they're going to be Champions League contenders, etc., etc. And I think the biggest mistake, do I think the move from Upton Park was right or wrong? I think to a point it was kind of right. Yes, we could have rebuilt Upton Park. We could have built it up to a 45,000-seater stadium. The plans were there. Apparently they were approved, and so on and so forth. We could have built up a 45,000-seater stadium. Do I think moving to a 60,000-seater stadium was right? I get it. I get the business end of it. But what the owners failed to do wasn't so much moving us. It was all the promises that they made that surrounded it. Stupid to have done that, because if they just said to the fans, look, on a business level, we've got to move West Ham United and for it to grow, for it to, be financially viable, etc., etc. I think a lot of fans would have gone, I hate it, but I get it. It's the fact that they just made all these stupid promises, when Gold, rest his soul, was alive, and he said, oh yeah, the seats are going to be as far as they are at the Upton Park, and all this is going to happen, etc. I think that's the stuff that really, really got to fans, and we felt utterly let down, utterly betrayed. But was it right to move? Yeah, probably. So when it comes to Saudis taking over, I don't know. What would they do? What would they do for West Ham? Would they inject enough money? Well, if we stay in Europe, it doesn't matter how rich the owners are. It means they can't inject any more money than financial fair play will allow them to. All these clubs that are spending and spending and spending, Chelsea and Arsenal, etc., etc. I dare say sooner or later, it's going to catch up with them. Chelsea can almost do it because financial fair play in the Premier League is not as stringent as it is in Europe. If Chelsea make it into Europe next season, I wonder how they're going to fare then. You know, and I think some of these clubs are going to, with all the money that they're spending, are going to get a little bit unstuck. Howard, Qataris, doofus, they have a slightly better human rights policy than the Saudis. Oh, that's all right then. Montana, Areola has looked shaky at claiming loose balls. He's done it twice now. It's fine, but I'm not saying our players are terrible, but we can get replacements for almost anyone. Yes, I totally agree. There is, you know, there's always a replacement for a player, no matter how good or bad he is. It's interesting, you know, he did lose the ball right in front of us in the first half, and we thought, oh dear, you know, and then look at, it kind of undoes all the things, all the heroics that he did against Brighton when we pulled off what, half a dozen absolutely decent saves. He needs to sort that out. Mr. Doofus hated when Big Ears took over and splashed the cash around for has-beens, and it all went tits up. Bill, good point. Bill, it's been mentioned on Claret and Booze and by Gonzo, just speculation, but extremely likely now. I don't know if it is extremely likely to. Just because people say it, it doesn't mean it's true. You know, unless I get information otherwise, at this moment in time, I'm being told no. Absolutely not. That there are no plans to sell. But as I said earlier on, Bill, money definitely talks. Richard, good evening to you. The Saudis can do one. Good evening to you, Anthony. I hope you're well. Montana, that's exactly my point. We need to cover at centre back, so we might get one in January, I think. Yeah, okay. Tell the Saudis, no way at the moment. But if you want to come back in for Aguerd in the January transfer window, then we might talk. Absolutely agree. Trini, the good thing about the possible takeover is not about transfer money for me. It's about owning the stadium and the land around it and building a state-of-the-art training and youth facility. Yeah, I can see that potentially happening, and that would be absolutely exciting. That would be good. James, good evening to you. The Saudi story is going to keep popping up on the back of our league form and our trophy last season. Yeah, it will do. And it's, as I said, it's been knocking around for quite some time. Is there any truth in it? It's a good headliner, I guess. So I might do a show on it tomorrow morning and talk about it because it's certainly a good headliner. Is there any truth in it? At this moment in time, I say no, but that could change. Barry, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Christopher, good evening to you. Was Dinos the Aguerd replacement? Surely we won't let him go. No, I don't think he was. I think Dinos was the addition. Let's not forget, we let Craig Dawson go last January. We never replaced him. So for me, David Moyes wants 2 players for every position. And at this moment in time, he's got 4 players for centre backs. He's got Zuma, he's got Mavropanos, he's got Aguerd, and he's got Ogbonna. So I think he's happy with that. He's got 4 players there that can, and you know what he's going to do? Almost definitely know what he's going to do. He's almost definitely going to pick an 11 for the cup games and an 11 for the league games. Do I think that's right? It kind of worked before. I'd rather he mixed it up as often as possible, but I think that's his aim. I think he's going to be playing certain players who aren't getting a lot of game time in the Premier League. He's going to be putting them in the cup competitions, and I think probably Mavropanos is likely to be paired up with Ogbonna for the cup competitions. Good evening to you, Shaky. I hope you're well, mate. Nice of you to join. Good evening, Chris. I don't know if I said hello to you, but good evening to you as well. Good evening, Chris. How are you? I hope you're well, mate. Oh, sorry, Keith. Good evening. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Good evening, Hammerette. I hope you're well. Montana. I don't think I fancy a Saudi takeover. Really, they'll just bring a green jerk. What would they do then? What would happen then? Imagine that. Imagine West Ham United are bought by the Qataris or whatever, and they turn. I don't know what color they have. They've got red, I think, in their kit or something, or maybe green or whatever. They turn around and go, right, we're changing your strip. Look at the outcry when West Ham United got rid of the castle on the badge. The outcry. Now, let's be honest. The original badge was the crossed hammer. It didn't have a castle. But look at the outcry when West Ham United got rid of the castle when we moved from the old stadium. Imagine the Qataris coming in and going, right, as from tomorrow, you're going to wear a green kit or whatever. It happened, didn't it? What happened to Hull a few years back when they would get the new owner gave them a new name, didn't he? Or Hull Rovers or whatever it was. It could happen. They'll own it. They'll be able to do whatever they want with the club. Juha, good evening to you. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. And you think I might be sort of exaggerating, but I'm not. You know, new owners can come in and go, this is what we want to do with the club. And who would stop them? Are we gonna have marches against that? You know, bored out again, you know, we don't want to wear green or whatever. I know I'm pushing it to the extreme, but it's the sort of thing that could possibly happen. Good evening, Matt. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Much appreciated. Mr. McLaren, how are you? I ain't seen you. I know you. You know what I'm like. Are you going to be at the next game, Man City game? Andy, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Montana, we don't need 300 million players. Look at Chelsea spending big on players that don't give a piss of play. You know, it's poor. Are Chelsea going to do well? I'm not so sure, to be quite honest with you. Adam, good evening to you. I hope you're well. James, I think we as fans have to decide what we want our club to be and where we want it to be. Do we want to be a top 6 team every season? We can do that. Do we need Qatari money to do it? I'm not so sure. You know, Newcastle haven't. They're doing all right, but they haven't started that well this season. They might not make. What will happen with a team like Newcastle if they don't make the top 6? You know, and they've got an abundance of money, haven't they? Mr. Tiley, how are you? I hope you're well. Good evening, Black Country. How are you? Thanks for joining, mate. 7th of September. No, apparently their transfer window, the Saudi transfer window, apparently closes 20 days after ours does. 20th of September, I understand. But do correct me if I'm wrong. Andy, 4K still, excellent number. Thank you very much, mate. Next up, 5K. Well, let's see how long we'll get to that. But thank you, Andy. Much appreciated. Christopher, thank you very much. Really appreciated. Flamer, how are you, mate? Thank you. That's how far back I am. I'm already half an hour behind on the chat, you know, and I haven't even gone into any of the script yet. Hang on, let's get the script up before it disappears completely. There you go. Barry, good evening to you. I'm not surprised you've got a lot of... Yeah, thank you. Thank you all, really. I really appreciate that. Epic, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Kent, how are you, mate? Brilliant trip to Luton on Friday. Old school ground, really enjoyed it. Very different to... It was, wasn't it, mate? It was like, you know, I think we moved about 4 times to try and get a view of all that. And we ended up in the far... As you're facing the pitch, we ended up on the far left-hand side, and I could just about see the goal. I just about saw Zuma scoring. Epic. Fellaini will be available on a free in January. Montana. These 2-week breaks in September and October should be squeezed into 1 month in January. Win-win for everyone. I think that. I 100% agree with you. I think I've actually got that written in my script because I'm going to talk about international. Actually, that's a good point to go into the international news. So no sooner, as you've just said, no sooner does the Premier League start, the international break is upon us already. Here we go. I've got it. Yeah. Why don't the authorities get together, find a month in the calendar to play all qualifying internationals in one go? Whilst look, it's awful. You know, we've just gotten into it. We've just gotten into the rhythm of going back to football. And now we've got this 2-week break. And then as soon as we get back into it in October, we've got another 2-week break as well. It's daft, isn't it? I mean, the authorities can get together and do it if they really want to. Anyway, players that are out with international teams. Nayef Aguerd, who we've just spoken about, potential transfer link with a Qatari club. Nayef Aguerd is with the Moroccan squad for the forthcoming 2023 African Cup of Nations qualifier against Liberia and Burkina Faso in a friendly. Who else is out? Alphonse Areola. I would like to see Areola get an opportunity to be number 1 for the French team. He's been included in the France squad for the 2 international fixtures being played in September. It is September. Didier Deschamps' side first. They host the Republic of Ireland in the UEFA Euro 2024 group qualifier in France. And then on the 7th of September, France then travel to... that's on the 7th of September. And then they travel to Dortmund to take on Germany in a friendly on the 12th of September. Vladimir Sufal and Thomas Souček are both in the Czech Republic squad. Can Souček play? I mean, it's 10 days. I guess it'd be just enough time that he suffered because he suffered from concussion. But they're in the Czech Republic squad for their UEFA 2024 European qualification match against Albania and a friendly away game to Hungary. Dinos Mavropanos is with the Greek national side. They're set to play the Netherlands away on Thursday and then Gibraltar at home on Sunday in a pair of Group B qualifiers. Our new boy, Mohamed Kudus, will play for Ghana in their Group E fixture at home to Central African Republic on Thursday that's for the African Nations thing. And then they have an international break. They finished their international break with a friendly game against Liberia on the 12th. Saeed Benrahma is out with his national team, Algeria. They've already secured qualification for the African Nations Cup tournament next year, but they face Tanzania in their last qualifying game on Thursday. Then they close their international break with a friendly against Senegal on Tuesday the 12th. And then Maxwell Cornet, he's also out on it. Oh, I haven't got a photo of him. Maxwell Cornet is also out on international duty for the Ivory Coast, playing Lesotho on the Saturday, and their final qualifier game against Mali next Tuesday. Mikel Antonio will be in the CONCACAF Nations League action with Jamaica, a match at home to the Honduras in League A, Group B. A match game against Honduras will be played at 2 a.m. on Saturday, the 9th of September. And a second fixture against Haiti will be played at 1 a.m. on Wednesday, the 13th. He's going to come back fresh, isn't he? And then capping off a busy international roundup, our new star man in the middle of the park, Edson Alvarez, will be involved with the Mexico squad. He's also involved in the CONCACAF Gold Cup. The CONCACAF Gold Cup winners will play 2 friendlies in America over the coming days against Australia in Texas and in the early hours of Sunday morning against Uzbekistan in Atlanta. Fuck me. They're all going to come back knackered, aren't they? Anyway, that's the international roundup. We also have, when we now know about Europe, and we now know what group we're in, and we're in Group A. Who gave a loud cheer when West Ham was the first team to be pulled out of the hat? I did. I know I did. I was going to try and do a live watch along for the draw. I just couldn't, unfortunately. I was going to take an extended lunch, but unfortunately got called into a meeting about 15 minutes beforehand. Had it all set up as well. I actually loaded it up and then had to take the link off. So here we are. We've got Olympiacos, we've got FC Freiburg from Germany, and we've got FKTSC, or better known as Baka Topola from Serbia. Now, the games are going to be played on our first match day is on the 21st of September when we host Baka Topola at home with an 8 p.m. kickoff on the 21st. And then our first away game, the game that we're actually banned from, our fans are banned away, is on the 5th of October at 5:45 in the afternoon against Freiburg. Now, I've been told that Freiburg is a pretty decent team. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about each team in a moment. They're a pretty decent team, so let's not count our chickens on that one. And then, of course, we're away again against Olympiacos. And I said at the beginning of the show, it was confirmed earlier today that we are definitely, because there's an awful lot of speculation, and I also speculated that there's a possibility that this game may be moved for a couple of reasons, or one reason, because Panathinaikos are also playing in near Athens on the same day. Okay, their game starts later in the evening, local time 9 o'clock in the evening. So yes, the games are far apart, but it's the concern over fans amalgamating in Athens before and after the games. Now, there's been a lot of trouble in Greek football. And it culminated also in Champions League qualifier last month, where there was quite a lot of violence, and one player and one fan got stabbed to death. So it's a little bit tasty out there, to be quite honest with you. And I thought that maybe that the Greek authorities have got the right to veto traveling fans. They can actually turn around and say to the at any time and go, no, we're not going to have this. But apparently UEFA have been discussing it. They've talked about the games coming up, etc., and it's all been confirmed that fans can travel. to the game on the 26th of October at Olympiacos. I'm trying to get my mates to go. I think I want to go. Of course I want to go. But let's see what happens. Anyway, the home game against Olympiacos, the reverse fixture, happens on the 9th of November at 8 p.m. And then we're away again to Bakatopola at 5:45 in the afternoon on the 30th of November. Now, as it stands, their stadium is only 4,500 capacity, and it may be moved in order to accommodate a bigger capacity. But at this moment in time, they don't necessarily have to do that. Now, I was led to believe last week that each team in Europa had to have a capacity of at least 8,000. But it seems that TSC are allowed to play their game at their current stadium. And then the fixtures end on the 14th of December at 8 p.m. Against Freiburg at home. That I guess is going to be quite a tasty little game as well. Now, what do we know about these teams? Well, let's start with the team that we're playing first. Bakatopola, as I said, based in Serbia. They play at the TSC Arena. And maybe, as I said, an alternative venue may be named. No honours to talk about, but at this moment in time, they're currently first in their league. How to get there? You can fly to Belgrade, 2.5 hours, cost you 90, 100, 150 pounds. And then you've got to change. You go by bus, 2 buses and a train all the way to Bakatopola, which will take you about 3 hours. It'll cost you about 60 quid, but that's a long, long journey. If you're staying around there, hotels cost from anything from around £20 a night. What about their manager and their best player? Manager Zarko Lazetic is a Serbian, has been managing in the Serbian league. He won the Serbian league in 2005, 2006 with Bezani Jar, and then the Serbian league and the Serbian Cup double in 2007, 2008 with Partizan. Their main player is Milos Pantovic, 27 years of age. He joined TSC this summer. He's a Serbian international, formerly played for the likes of Bayern Munich, where he won league and cup doubles, etc. Right. SC Freiburg, based in Germany. They play in the Schwarzwald Stadium. 34, it's all right, isn't it? 34,500 capacity, but we can't go. Current status in the league is 5th. How to get there? A Eurostar to Paris, and then train to Versailles, and then a TGV to Freiburg. Take you about 6.5 hours to get there. If you're really interested, cost you something between 180 to 400 pounds. And then from the station to the stadium, a 21-minute train for a few quid, or a bus, 12 minutes. Stay hotels around there, round about 40, 50 pound a night or more. Their manager, Christian Streich, again, no honours to talk about. Their best player is a 25-year-old Japanese international, Ritsu Doan, who joined Freiburg in 2022. He was formerly with PSV Eindhoven, where he was a Dutch Cup winner with them. And finally, Olympiacos is the game I want to go to. They play at the Kariskakis Stadium, capacity of 33,000, just over 33,000. Honours, they've been champions 47 times. They won the Greek Cup 28 times, all these records. They're currently first in the league as well. How to get there? Flight to Athens, 3.75 hours, about 160, 200 quid. Mind you, they've gone up since I've been looking, because I looked at it last night and they've shot up. But there you go. That's typical. And then from the airport to Paris, subway takes about an hour, which costs you about a tenner. Stay hotels, anything from about £35 a night. Their manager, Diego Martinez, again, don't knock this, but again, no honours to talk about. And their main player, I'm sure you know, Olympiacos are owned by the same owner as Nottingham Forest. And their main player is Gustavo Scapa, 29 years of age, Brazilian international, who's just been sent on loan from Nottingham Forest. So, some interesting teams. You know, Olympiacos, the most successful Greek club in football history. Like I said, 47 times champions, 28 times cup winners. They've recorded domestic doubles, a record 18 times. And as you know, they're based in Athens. They became the first Greek club to play in European competitions when they competed in the 1959-1960 European Cup, losing 5-3 on aggregate to AC Milan. We've played them 6 years later as European Cup Winners' Cup holders in the second round of the same competition in September 1965, where goals from Johnny Byrne, Peter Bradbook, and Jeff Hurst secured a 4-0 first leg win at the Boleyn, before Martin Peters netted twice in Greece to secure a 2-2 draw, 6-2 on aggregate. We also hosted them in a pre-season match at Boleyn in August 2006, when Marlon Harewood scored in a 1-1 draw. Olympiacos have faced a host of English clubs over their time, namely that club from North London, Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea, another club from North London, etc., etc. Diego Martinez's side finished third in the Super League last season and qualified for the Europa League stage by defeating a club from Serbia, can't pronounce their name, 6-1 on aggregate. What about Freiburg? Well, they're enjoying arguably their best period in their 119-year history. The German side finished fifth in the Bundesliga last season to qualify directly for the Europa League group stages. They will. This level will hold no fear for. This level won't hold any fears for them, so they're not going to be afraid of West Ham United. Because they came through a Europa League group unbeaten last season that also contained Olympiacos, where who they face again this time round. And they also played last season Qarabag and Nantes. So they're going to be quite a tasty team. And Freiburg previously reached the group stages in 2013-14, where the Brausgau Brazilians are competing in Europe for a sixth time. So they're going to be a very interesting team. Now, what about TSC? What about the team from Serbia? Well, they're also enjoying a golden period at the moment. From Baka Topola in the north of Serbia, they finished second in the Serbian Super League last season, their best finish in their 93-year history. They were originally formed as Topolaya Sporting Club in what was then Yugoslavia back in 1930. And they initially played in the Hungarian Second League during the Second World War. Now, whilst going through a series of changes, the club played in Yugoslavian leagues and the Serbian leagues following independence, and finally promoted to the Superliga in 2017. They qualified for Europe for the first time in 2020-21 in the Europa League, but they were eliminated by FCSB. Remember them? And by finishing as Superliga runners-up last season, the club qualified for the Champions League for this time. But they were beaten 7-1 on aggregate by a Portuguese club, Braga, to drop them into the Europa League. So, interesting teams, interesting times. It's going to be interesting to see how it all goes. And of course, if I can't go I know I can't go to none of us can go to the German game. I don't know how many of us are going to be able to get tickets for the Serbian game unless they move stadiums. So it's got to be Greece. So Wiggy and Paul, if you're watching, let's book those flights, mates, and let's go. Right. What else have we got here? And let's go back into your chat. Hammer it. Glad we don't have all the crap Man United have got at the moment between manager and players. We think we've got problems. That's a really good point. Skamaka and Erlo were professional about not playing as much. It's really interesting, isn't it, what's going on at Man United? Cockney, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Irons lady Benny a target too for the Orr money. Yeah, apparently that was mentioned, but the rumor at the moment is primarily about Aguerd. I don't think there's much truth in it, but let's see what happens. Ken, a really big banana skin at Luton. We would have lost that 2 years ago, or maybe even last year. Yeah, we won it really well. Other teams will struggle there and will pick up points. They'll pick up points at home. Yeah, I agree. I do honestly think that they may go down, but I agree with you. It won't be easy to play there. Good evening, Huge. I hope you're well. Must say, very impressed by Alvarez. Fantastic, isn't he? He's what we've been hoping for and what we've needed for quite some time. Thought he was just going to be a holding central midfielder. Comes out playing not one but two 1-to-1s before laying off to Paquetá to cross for Bone and score. Absolutely, he's great. He's really, really good. And imagine playing for Ajax for a few years. You're going to be able to learn a few skills there, aren't you? Good evening to you, Wolf. Yeah, Luton will finish rock bottom. I think they look very... I think they're okay, but I think they will get relegated. Good evening, Hammers Mikey. I hope you're well. Alvarez, future captain for me. As for City, Sojek should be back, dear God, and then watch a spiral down the table. Don't get me started on Lingard. I think the team we had out against Luton, I think is the right team. I think Souček should be benched against City, but you just know that Moyes will bring him back in. Lingard, I don't mind. You know, I kind of got over my frustration over hearing that we might be linked to it, and I think it's all right. I think it's all right. You know, we've signed him up, and I think he'll probably do half a decent job for us. Matthew, we need him for Euro games. We need several players for Euro games. I think we've got a really decent squad. Adding someone like keeping Aguerd and adding someone like Lingard to it, I don't think will necessarily be a bad thing. Kent, I know this won't go down well with some. I would sell Benny if the Saudi money comes in, put a bid in for him. There's players to replace him, and he's too wasteful and inconsistent. He hasn't had a great start. Isn't it interesting, Kent, that when he got benched for the game against Brighton, and then he had to come on, he played well. But all the other games he started, he's not just done. I don't know what's going on. It's weird sometimes with him. So he blows so hot and cold sometimes. It's weird. Ashley, hope there's a place for Pablo if Benny goes and should start before Lingard. Pablo I like, and I'm glad we've kept him. He is in the last year of his contract, so let's see what happens. But I dare say there's going to be some movement in January as well. I dare say, you know, if we don't renew Pablo Fornals' contract, he might leave in January so we can get a bit of money for him. And there might be one or two other players that might fare the same way. John, good evening to you. Sorry, wouldn't sell any more players to the Saudi authorities. Can get stuff. I think it's the wrong time. I really do. Like someone said earlier, our transfer window should be aligned. Graham, if the Saudis want to be legitimate in world football, then their transfer window should align with European leagues. Absolutely. Lee, good evening to you, mate. Hope all is well. Hit the like. Thank you very much. And it does. It really does. Thank you very much, Lee. I hope you're well, mates. Huge. Qataris haven't pulled out of sell. Qataris haven't pulled out of sell for manure. They've been humiliated by the Glazers. You know they want like losing. They won't like losing face and being humiliated. I think they're spitting blood. Now you see all these different stories that come out. You know, apparently they pulled out of a sell. Other people are saying they haven't, etc. Which is why there are rumours now that they're in for West Ham United. So if you're right, and I'm not saying that you're not, if you're right, then you know they're not coming in for West Ham, are they? Hammerit, I kind of agree regarding selling Benny. We're progressing nicely. He's been the weak link thus far this season. It's a shame, but you're absolutely right. He has. Trini, I heard that they're looking at buying the stadium and land. How could Sullivan stop that? We don't own the ground or the land. No, we don't. They could buy the stadium and the land and they around it. Absolutely, you're 100% right. But the leasehold that we've got with the stadium, doesn't matter who the owners are, is airtight. It can't change. You know, so yeah, they can buy everything that you want, etc. But they don't necessarily have to. Wouldn't own the club. Daniela, I don't think the goals can sell till 2025 before they get hit with death taxes. You know, I think you might be right, but I don't think they're going to sell anyway. Who else we got? Peter. Takeover rumors are much more exciting than the transfer rumors sometimes. I know you don't like the owners. Shaky. If we're owned by a porn baron, how can hardly take the moral high ground? Yeah, fair play. Good evening to you, Jerry. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Who else we got? Wolf. If I could become a billionaire doing porn, I would do it. I think we probably all would. Irons. Ed. When was Sully a porn star? Thankfully, he wasn't a porn star. Did I say he was a porn star? I said he was in the porn business. Now I've got that thought in my head of Sullivan being a porn star. I won't be able to shake that out of my head now. Irons lady. Aguerd is the weak link at the back. Oh, you think so? Clinton Morris gave him a torrid time. I think he won't be missed, to be honest. Saudi has a 40 billion pounds to use up. That's really interesting. I don't think he is the weak link. I think he's had a shaky start to the season, but I don't necessarily think he's the weak link. Hi, Scott. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Trini, American, Qatari, Saudi, all have dodgy human rights. So what's the difference? That is true. No Englishman has that sort of money or is interested. True again. Yeah, good point. Hello from the US. Hello, mate. How are you? 8 hours behind. Good evening to you, James. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining and thanks for watching, mate. Good evening, Dave. How are you? Well done. Thank you very much, mate. Subscribes. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Much appreciated. Hammers Mikey. Fans go on about morals, but I think we should ditch our morals when it comes to the Qataris. Within 2 decades, the majority of Premier League clubs will be Saudi or Qatari owned anyway. Plus, Sullivan is gone. You know, you're probably right there, Mikey. You're probably right. They'll probably just keep buying into football club. I mean, you know, we thought that was going to happen with the Americans, didn't we? There was a surge at one point of Americans buying football clubs, and now the Saudis coming in. Yeah, that's and then before you know it, they'll be in the Champions League. It'll be one big Champions League that includes most teams around the world. It'll be a massive money making scheme. Yeah, you're probably right there. Montana, we don't need green jerseys. They've never worn in our history. We're not manure teams like that. No, I'm saying, what if the Qataris took over and they turned around and said, yeah, why don't you wear green from now on? But you're right, we've never worn green. Don't think we've ever had a green away kit either, have we? Aguerd looks happy to me, Andrew. Would be surprised to see him go. I would be as well. Totally agree. Bill, building an infrastructure around the stadium already, it will only get bigger, and Air Khan needs the money to deflect the ULEZ debacle. You know, apparently they already own a lot of the land around there anyway. And it probably will be only a matter of time before someone like the Qataris buy the stadium. Wouldn't be surprised. Bradley, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Daniela, the Americans are no angels. Come to think of it, very anti-LGBTQ, and we all know the race issues as well. Good point. Ed, I think Stell should seek professional medical help regarding his sneaky feeling. 8 Barley. Our market is closed. No buys or sells of contracted players if the market is closed. Well, they can bid for them, apparently, is what I understand. Usual. Sullivan's money isn't exactly clean, so I'm quite happy for the Arabs coming in. Hammer it. Can see why Moyes was so determined to get in another centre back in this window, though Aguerd's becoming quite shaky. I don't think he's had the best starts, but I don't know. I think he'll be all right. I could be wrong. Fred, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Garino. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. And good evening to you, Paul. How are you, mate? Who else we got? Scott. Bowen and JWP on fire, and he chooses players that have 0 games played, as in the England manager, Mr. Southgate. How far behind am I? Pretty damn far behind. Hammers Mikey. Southgate is another Moyes, both yes men, and both have their shitty favourites, whether they're in form or out of form. Oh, and both ex-defenders, says it all. Let me scroll down a bit. Irons Lady. Newcastle look like they've lost the buzz of last season, and they ain't started in Europe yet. All good for us if we keep the good start going. I totally agree. You see, you know, money doesn't buy you automatically buy you success. Maybe it did at one point. I don't know. Too many teams, too much money. It's all now a very different level playing field. You know, there's those people up there that have got, you know, shed loads of money, and I don't know. Mind you, they're not all doing that well. Jerry, and we're doing better, aren't we? You know, with the porn money. Jerry, Moyes and present management to stay. Lots of us were all shouting about having Carrick, but his team isn't doing that great. They're bottom of the league, aren't they, at the moment? Trini, the owners. The ownership is second rate. We don't own the stadium, and our training facilities are poor. Man City not only developed the ground, they also built infrastructure to regenerate the area. If they do that, I get it. Yeah, I get it. But I don't know. Maybe I've got a thing, and maybe I should get, the whole thing about their human rights, etc. Maybe that's the thing that bothers me more. Maybe it shouldn't. I don't know. Scott, as much as I love the history of the old grounds, West Ham needed to move on. Owners just shouted their mouths up too much as usual. Miss Smith, good evening to you. Our owners may be greedy, Tory wankers, but they're not bombing children's hospitals. Do you see the difference? See, everyone's got points on this, and they're all, they're all decent points, because people will see this in very different ways. Totally agree with you. Wolf, Chelsea bought all the 20-year-olds, which was insane. You would think that they would have bought at least a couple of older Premier League proven quality. They're going to suffer. I don't think they're going to do. I don't know. It's funny, isn't it? Because after our game, when we played them, I said I saw enough to make me think that they're going to do really well. And then they just like nosediving, aren't they? They don't seem to be doing well at all. Usual. I found the word for Southgate. Southgate, dullard. The man is a dullard. Montana. Is that interesting, is he? Montana, we should buy the London Stadium and reorient the seating style. I don't like the current configuration. It's improved, but it can be a hell of a lot better. I totally agree with you. Russell, we moved because London won the Olympics and they weren't going to leave an empty stadium in the middle of London. It was a business opportunity. You could see it coming. You knew it was coming. The only unfortunate thing is not being allowed to have turned it. It can't be an Olympics, a stadium, a running track stadium, etc. For other sports. It should have just been turned into a footballing stadium, and that would have been that. Garino. Grealish and Trent out of the England squad. Southgate has to decide not to replace them because Maguire and Henderson cannot be called up twice. Trini, I think when people think of takeovers, they only concentrate on transfer money. There is more than that needed to take the club forward. Yeah, I agree. Like someone else said, maybe it was you that said it. Build the infrastructure, new training facilities, etc., etc. Yeah, good point. Scott, Areola has dropped a few, but those same balls Fabs wouldn't have come for. Yeah, there you go. Ryan, will we have to take our shoes off before we enter the stadium? Bill, the LLDC control how the stadium is set up. Maybe GSB thought they could change things. Look how long it took them to get the carpet. Yeah, the LLDC have got full control. And apparently they were meant to sort of expire at the end of 2025. And apparently there's now talk of extending the LLDC for longer. Interesting. See what happens there. Matt, I don't want them dirty radicals at our club. We will never be the old West Ham due to being at Stratford, but we got many gay fans and many left-wing fans. They won't be able to attend that. That's a really good point. So how would LGBT, the whole title, feel? Gay fans, left-wing fans, etc. How would they feel about that? That's a really, really, really good point. It's an interesting point. That James, I can't wait till the next day when I don't have to see that midget with his Russian hat in the director's box. Well, James, I think you're going to be waiting a little bit longer. Scott, my biggest concern is the looks on Cressy and Fab's faces on the bench. They look downright sour, even when we're winning. Well, they're not involved, and I get it, and I understand it, and I kind of get why Cresswell probably wanted to move because he knew he'd probably get some game time. But we've got to move with the times. We've got to move on. Fabianski's had a great run. Cresswell's had a great run. You can't just keep playing the same players over and over and over again. You need replacements, and that is the way it goes. I'll be very honest with you. I was really surprised that Moyes had actually picked Areola as our number one. Do I think it's right? Yes, I do. Look at the performance he put in against Brighton when we won that game. Superb performance. Yes, he's dropped a few, but as someone else has just alluded to, Fabianski wouldn't have even come for those balls. Andrew, I'm not sure the Qataris would be the right fit for West Ham. Not a massive fan of the current regime, but the grass is not always greener. Interesting points there. You see, I should have titled the show about the Qatari takeover. Maybe I'll do that. But mind you, you're all having your points of view here. Matt, I'd rather have Sonny own us and be the same as we are now than be owned by these people. Hammers Mikey. The Saudis pulled out of the Man United bid. See, someone said about 5 minutes ago that they haven't, and you're saying that they have. So you see all the conflicting stories that we get. I don't know which of you is right, so I'm not going to say. The Saudis pulled out of the Man United bid and turned their attention to West Ham because Moyes promised them he would try and sign half the United squad. You caught me out. I should have read the whole thing before I made my apology. Trini, don't sell Aguerd. Why would we? When Cresswell went on strike, is no longer any good and still on the books. We possibly need another centre-back, not to be selling one. I wouldn't say we need another centre-back, but certainly people are talking about we need an alternative right-back and an alternative left-back without a shadow of a doubt. Scott, will Cornet getting caught up? Will he get a run out in the cup games? It's going to be really interesting to see what Moyes does in the cup games. I fully expect Cornet. I'm really surprised Cornet hasn't played any part in any of the games so far. I think he's had a few minutes here and there. But it's going to be very interesting to see what Moyes does with the likes of Cornet. I would expect him to be playing. Spooky D, Spooky Duke, good evening to you. Thanks for the context on everything, Hammers. Much appreciated. And thank you for commenting as well and getting involved. James, if it's mentioned by Clarendon, Booz and Gonzo, it must be true. Montana. Stella, I told you we shall have a great season. You did indeed. Now, if Tim's signings bang, Moyes will be more open to his recommendations. Alvarez played his way into the starting lineup. You know what? I'm looking forward. That the main recommendation. I did a show this morning about the transfers that we did. Now, apparently, we've been interested in Alvarez for quite some time. We've been apparently looking at him over a couple of seasons, so we can't say that's Steiden signing. James Ward-Prowse, you know, it was a unanimous decision that everybody wanted him. Can't say Steiden was Steiden signing either. Kudus, yes, absolutely. Steiden went over, sealed the deal, and sold West Ham United to Kudus and his agent. So all fair play to him. But the only player at the moment that is credited to Steiden is Mavropanos, because whilst Moyes was looking at Maguire, trying to get Maguire in, etc., it was Steiden that turned around to Moyes and said, "Why don't we look at this player?" And thankfully he went with it. Now, what's going to be interesting is if Mavropanos does smash it, then Moyes is going to be more likely to want to have those discussions again with Steiden in the future for transfer targets. That bond, that trust is going to be built there if Mavropanos proves to be the real deal. So it's going to be interesting. If Mavropanos fails, I'm not so sure Moyes is going to want to hear from Steiden about any other transfers. But I don't think Mavropanos will fail. Victor, I bet we're still talking about a takeover in 5 years' time. Sullivan would hand his shares over to his kids. He will not sell. This is what I think. And I think the Gold family are doing exactly the same. You know, yes, lucrative offers, etc. There may come a time when Sullivan goes, okay, fair enough, I've had enough, my kids aren't interested. But you know, there's been a lot of talk about handover to the Sullivan kids and the Gold kids, and it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Let's scroll down. Let me try and scroll down and catch up with you guys. Hull Tigers is what it was. Yes, thought so. They changed the name, didn't they, David? There you go. It happened at Cardiff. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. The owners changed their kit to red. Trini, no owners has successfully managed to change kit colours or club names since they took over. Not one. Well, hang on, mate. Hull Tigers and changing the kit to red. I think Cardiff did go back to their original colours again, didn't they? Keith, the new Cardiff owners made them wear red some years back. The Bluebirds in red, etc. Yep. Peter, most of the new owners have kept the original colours, but just the away kits have been changed. I can wear any colour for away, can't we? Except orange. I wouldn't want anyone to come up with an orange kit for West Ham. That would be wrong, wouldn't it? Oh, hang on a minute. Shane, Gonzo was only looking at why we have already paid the £55 million loan. I posted the video on West Ham through and through. I'll have to have a proper look at that. But you know, the payment for the loan was obvious because we got so much money up front for Declan Rice, and we could afford to pay that back. So rather than having that loan there in order to keep paying interest on it, it was better to pay that off and utilize a lot of the transfer money that we got in. All right, I know they paid in installments, but you get what I'm saying. Montana. Trini, Cardiff owners changed the jersey to red. Yeah, we talked about that one. Kent, Cardiff changed their kit. Yeah, done that one. Please forgive me. I'm trying to sort of run through this as quickly as I can. Let's scroll down. Who we got? Richard. I don't want Middle East money coming into our club. Makes me want to see. People have got different opinions on it. Some people think it'll be a good thing. Some people think it won't be a good thing. I don't know. I'm in two minds. I don't know if I want it, to be quite honest with you. But yeah. Razor, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Give Poch time. Chelsea will be fine. Qatari hopefully buy us soon. And Sully and the Tory woman disappears for good, along with Moyes. Imagine Moyes not being able to try and get manure crap here. You know, I know a lot of people want it, but just because we want it doesn't mean it will happen. And I'm not so sure. Daz, I will stop supporting West Ham if we're owned by Qataris. So people have got differing views. You know, some people want it, some people don't. Scott, what a signing Alvarez has been for us. I totally agree. I'm anti-Mexico. I cheer for Canada, though I love Mexico as a country and the people. But I'll be watching them for Alvarez. He'll be in for Hammer of the Year. The hokey cokey left out for me. Didn't understand that. Forgive me. Let's scroll down. Ballon, good evening to you. I hope you're well. If every team was progressive or whatever that buzzword means, football would be boring. Mr. Doofus, just Freiburg to worry about. I don't know. I think we need to watch out for Olympiacos as well, to be quite honest with you. They might have something. I don't know. I can't see them giving us problems, but let's see. John, tickets booked for Germany. You can't go to the game. You do know that, don't you, John? I hope you're well, mate. Unless you're going to go out to a bar and watch it. I don't know. Montana. TSC should have been the game we got banned for. Unfortunately, it was just the first game, the first away game that was drawn. And unfortunately, it was Freiburg. We were all wishing it was TSC because none of us are going to be able to go because there's only going to be around 250 tickets available anyway. UEFA has a thing with English clubs, yet we bring way more marketing revenue to them. Ungrateful bastards. Hammer it. Left and right back are the only positions we are short in, and maybe a striker. Have very decent cover everywhere else. Crazy will really need to step up when used. Yeah, I agree with that. Russell, still, that was a political attack on anti-fascist by AEK Athens and Dinamo Zagreb Nazis. I know the context to it. Totally understand it. I know the context behind it. But what I'm saying is that Greek football has got a problem. They've got a big problem at the moment with, especially with the bigger clubs, where there seems to be an awful lot of issues with football at the moment. Let's scroll down. Wolf. Haven't got a picture of Cornet. He doesn't just go missing on the pitch by injury. He even goes missing. I didn't do it. I didn't do it deliberately. Good evening, Manji Barry. How are you, mate? To get to Athens, it will be cheaper to fly to Crete than swim to the I'll tell you what, mate. Greece is one of the cheapest places to bloody go to. I'm sure when I looked last night, the prices have gone up to about 300 odd quid. It's a joke, absolute joke. You know, I'll probably fly to somewhere like Poland or fly to Bulgaria and then go across. That'll be cheaper. Mr. Rupert, how are you? Just a suggestion. Could you supply a 10-course tasting menu to all of us whilst watching your show? You know how hungry I get. Well, I'm surprised you've taken time out from eating to actually comment on the show, mate. You're going to need to go and have a lie down in a minute. Let me tell you a little story about Mr. Rupert, shall I? We were sitting in a little cafe, eating some food en route to the Luton game on last Friday evening. And the guys next to me, Wiggy and Paul, they ordered this platter. There was just a mountain of chicken and all that sort of stuff on it, peri chicken. And Rupert turns up. He saw us walking past. He saw us as he was walking past, and he came in. And guess what? He cleared the plate. 2 plates of chicken, you know, and we were kind of eating. Rupert just put it in his lap, and within seconds, all he left was the bones. Good on you, Rupert. I hope you're well, mate. Don't go starving tonight, will you? Scott, looking at all the leagues, there are 5 or 6 teams that will really struggle. Luton's ground could be the difference for them staying up. Burnley, Sheffield, Wolves, Everton are very poor. Really surprised at Burnley. I thought they would do better. Wolves, I think they're in trouble. Sheffield, I agree with. Everton, I agree with as well. Let me scroll down. How far am I? Almost catching up, so I can do. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a little bit of break. Well, not a break, but I'm going to go into the next part of the show because I forgot to mention, by the way, we've got the League Cup coming up, haven't we? And in the League Cup, we've been drawn against Lincoln City, which is being played on the 27th of September at 7:45 at the LNER Stadium. Lincoln booked their place in the competition's last 32 with a penalty shootout against Premier League club Sheffield United. It was a 0-0 draw, and then 2 saves from Lucas Jensen in the penalty shootout made sure that Lincoln got through. Well done to them. They're managed by former Republic of Ireland's winger Mark Kennedy, and they reached the 4th round of the competition last season as well when they were defeated by Southampton. We last visited their stadium way back in November 1982, where John Lyle's men drew 1-1, also in the League Cup 3rd round fixture. Details for the tickets will be confirmed very soon. I think we're going to be allocated something like around 1,200 tickets. Yes, we're going and hope we get a win there. We should, but let's not take any team too lightly. Right, what about some other news? Well, let's look at some of our loans some of our loan players, shall we? First of all, Freddie Potts. Midfielder Freddie Potts was in the League One side Wycombe Wanderers, who beat Northampton Town at the weekend. It was a 3rd straight win of the season for Wycombe, with Potts marshalling the defense, a little bit like an Alvarez. Don't know how. I haven't watched any of the games, but hopefully he's doing well. He's being picked, so he must be doing really, really well. So well done to him and well done to them. Goalkeeper Nathan Trott is finally on the end of a win at his loan club, Visual BK, over in Denmark. It was 6 games on the trot they lost. This was their 7th game after being promoted to the Danish Superliga, where they beat Odense 2-1. Despite going a goal down, they pulled back and they won. There he is on the left-hand side. As you know, I hope you know, Nathan Trott is our on-loan goalkeeper for Visual. Another goalkeeper out on loan is Mason Terry. He was in action in the FA Cup over the weekend. The 18-year-old shot stopper started between the sticks for Concord Rangers, who drew 1-1 with Wroxham in the first qualifying round on Saturday. They were trailing with a 13th minute effort, but they equalised with just 4 minutes to go to secure a replay. They will be replaying again on Tuesday evening. So well done to you. I've forgotten his name already. Well done to you, Mason. Who else have we got out on loan? Archie Woods has gone out on loan to Dartford. The 19-year-old midfielder signed a professional deal in the summer of 2022. He's been a regular for the Under-21 Academy, making 22 appearances, and he's out on a season-long loan to National League South side, Dartford, and we wish him well. Apparently, he made an appearance as a second-half sub at the weekend, although was unable to help his team avoid defeat against Taunton Town. How ambitious is it by sending these young players out to all these? We're now sending them to non-league teams. I don't know. Flynn Downs was also in action at the weekend, but suffered a defeat with Southampton when they played Sunderland, where former Hammer Pierre Ekwar was one of the scorers. Oh, he actually scored 2 goals in their 5-0 drubbing of Southampton at the weekend. Another deadline day loan is Keenan Appiah San has gone on loan to Dagenham and Redbridge for the season. So we wish him well as well. Right. What else have we got? Let's talk a little bit about the under-21s and the under-18s, and then I'll get back to your comments. The under-21s, since Steve Potts took over with the under-21s, they've now had 4 wins on the bounce. They came from behind at the weekend to beat Everton at Rush Green. After an early strike putting Everton ahead, the Young Hammers responded and they secured their win in an exciting game, and well done to them. I think they're on fire. I think we've got some excellent players in the under-21s, and I think they're doing really, really well under Potts. I wasn't sure about the previous coach. The under-18s played Arsenal in the Premier League Cup at the weekend, and it was a hard-fought 1-1 draw, with goalie Finlay Herrick having been shown a straight red card. We had to get Liam Jones, a striker Liam Jones, to go in goal. So with 10 men and on 76 minutes, we were 1-0 down. We pulled the game back to 1-1. So well done to them as well. Right, let's go back into your comments. Who we got? Mr. Doofus. Lingard is 2 years older now, and remember his outstanding last season? Yeah, I know, but I've got a feeling, let's talk about Lingard for a moment, because, there is talk that we are going to offer him a short-term deal. It looks like it will happen. He's still got to demonstrate his fitness for West Ham United, but I think Lingard is set to sign a deal. Look, I did have a problem with it when it was first mentioned. My heart said absolutely no way. The way he treated us, etc., went off to Nottingham Forest chasing the money and so on. And I said he could do one. But thinking about it now, thinking about what we need in West Ham, we talk about poor old Benrahma, who's not having a great time. Lingard is the sort of player that can play out on the left side. Now, everyone is saying, well, we just play Kudus there. Kudus doesn't play, even though he's left-footed. He plays a bit like Jared Bowen. He prefers to play out on the right-hand side or play in the middle. Now, Lingard is the sort of player that can play out on the left. Now, I know people are saying, well, what, not in place of Fornals? Fornals is better off playing in the middle of the park, isn't he? So when it comes to the cup competitions, etc., you would expect someone like Lingard, if and when he does sign, to be sort of used in that manner, to be used out on the left side. I can kind of see it working. And if he pulls off even 2/3 of the ability that we know he had when he played for us last time, maybe it won't be such a bad thing. I'm not altogether against it. It wasn't what I really, really wanted. But if we get Lingard in, I kind of get it. And I've already mentioned the only other transfer story, of course, is Aguerd being targeted by Al-Ittihad. Now, again, I can't corroborate that this story is true. I started off the show talking about it. The transfer window in Saudi Arabia closes on the 20th of September. If that kind of sets a precedent, if they achieve getting that player, who else could they target, whether at West Ham or anywhere else? Right. The only other thing I'm going to talk about is the match review and talk about where we go from here because of the games coming up after the international break. But let's do a few more of your comments to try and catch up. Funky T, I guess Creswell is staying. Absolutely, he is. The transfer window shut. I'm hoping I know I say it that way. I apologize. I'm hoping Mubama will get some starts in the Europa. By the way, Benny was the second best goal scorer for the club. Can't see us selling him. Good point. I don't think Mubama will get a start in Europa unless it's a dead rubber kind of game. But I can see him coming on. Ryan, you mean the club from Southeast London, the club from Middlesex? Angie Barry, if the Saudis want any more fringe players, sell them in January, make them pay through the nose, call it the Saudi tax, and make it more than the Premier League tax. Good point. Garts, good evening to you. I haven't seen you for a while, Gart. Oh, have I missed you out? I hope you're well. The Premier League should bring in a rule to prevent teams selling or releasing players outside of the transfer window. Simple, end of discussion. Yeah, agree. Usual suspect. If Conor Gallagher touched the ball as much as he touches his hair on the pitch, the man would be a world beater. Razor. So you're saying still nobody can buy a leasehold and become the freeholder? No, they can. Didn't say that they can't. But what I'm saying is they might buy the stadium. That doesn't mean they own the club. The club is separate. But I didn't say that. They can absolutely buy the leasehold. And then they can they can buy it outright as well. Absolutely. But it's very different. They can buy the stadium. West Ham could end up renting the stadium from a Qatari owners. Yeah. But that leasehold is airtight. They're going to have to pay West Ham off quite a considerable amount of money for West Ham to move to let that leasehold go. Martin, just finished with the transfer rumours. Now we're starting with club takeovers. Well, you know it, Martin. You know it's always got to be something at West Ham United. Did I misunderstand you, Razor? Because unless you're saying something else, yes, the Qataris can come and buy the stadium. Absolutely. Man, don't give. Good evening to you. Karen Brady, being a porn star is much better to think about than Sullivan being a porn star. I agree with you there. Well, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Thinking about Sullivan will give you nightmares. I think it will give everyone nightmares, wouldn't it? Vina, I prefer American owners. I don't know. And I'll explain why in a minute. I prefer American owners to Qataris who have serious human rights issues. Now, the American owners, one thing that they want to do is they want to take us into a super league. They're determined. I think that Saudi owners will do much the same. We said it earlier on. I think one way or another, the Premier League is in massive danger over the next few years if we're not careful. We keep calling it the best league in the world, etc., etc. There's going to come a time, there've been false dawns before, haven't there? The Americans have tried to do leagues over there, didn't quite take off. The Chinese tried to do it, and then the money fell out of the bottom there as well. The difference with the Saudis is they've got an abundance of money and they're buying all these players. Now, you would look at the American League and the Chinese League. They were buying players who were a little bit past it, bygone names, etc. The Saudis are trying to go in for a lot of younger players. They're trying to, they bought some of the older players as well, but they're also trying to get younger players too. And I think, with the abundance of money they got, they could make it work. If they take over, then they'll only do what the Americans have been trying to do. The Americans have been pushing and pushing and pushing for a Super League. They're not getting their own way, but that's still on the table. Likes of Juventus and Barcelona and Real Madrid and other clubs, etc., really want that Super League to happen. But it's just being held off at the moment because UEFA keep bending, and changing Champions League and the way that's structured, etc., in order to keep teams on board. But there's going to come a day, where if it's not the Americans, it'll be the Qataris who are going to end up, pushing for some kind of Super League to involve their teams as well. You can see it happening. So I'm not so sure whether I want the Americans or the Qataris, to be quite honest with you. James, the answer to that question, the Rent Boys are currently 12th. There you go. They're doing really well, aren't they, after spending £1 billion? Graham, don't forget, back in the day, us Brits weren't always big on human rights. And as for Aguerd, a shaky start, certainly, but he will improve. I agree. And you're right about our human rights as well. We're not whiter than white, are we? Tim, good evening to you. Many years ago, Brian Blower at West Ham tried to introduce a green away kit to generate more money, something not a lot of people. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Rafs, when was that? I am way behind, Shaky. Still about half an hour. I'm trying to catch up. Imagine the sale of tea towels being at a premium in Westfield if they're bought by the Qataris. Tea towels? I'm missing something clearly. Montana. Americans screwed plenty of French clubs. They're now messing up Lyon. I wouldn't be surprised if they get relegated, that the players get all the stick. Did you see that thing? I sort of caught a glimpse of it where the ultras were speaking to the players, about the pride of wearing the shirt and all that sort of stuff. Can you imagine us doing that? Fucking hell, no way. Hammers Mikey. Fun fact, Sullivan was one of the divorced walking around with a bottle of cocaine. I don't know. The funny hour started early. Andrew, maybe Michael Tabor will come back in for a game for West Ham. West Ham through and through. He's run out. No, has he run out? I don't know. He won't come back in for us. He won't be able to afford us. James, people have a pop at Sullivan. I guess they never watch porn. He has given a lot of pleasure to people, hasn't killed anybody. James, good evening to you, mate. Cheers, Stel. Is Lingard still part of the conversation? Just mentioned him. John, I was just thinking the Qataris have a bad human rights record over the World Cup, but I imagine the IKEA Stadium they can knock up at the London Stadium. Man, don't give. I support West Ham football team. Whoever the owners are, it's not my problem. I'm just a fan and we'll keep supporting them whatever happens. I like that approach. Yeah, fair play. I like that approach. Razor. So Tories and austerity and food banks is better than the Saudis owning us, but these are Qataris, not Saudis, though, eh? No, absolutely not. I don't want to go into politics, but I'm certainly not on the blue side. Let's put it that way. Let's scroll down. What else have we got here? Keith. We would not be taken over by Qatar. We'd be taken over by a person just because the country has civil rights issues does not mean this businessman complies with those politics. Good point. I don't know. I don't even know who it is because all we keep hearing, I'm sure it's in one of the stories, but I just haven't bothered to read them. But I don't know who the individual is that is looking to buy us. Mice Collective. Fabichensky, good evening to you, Mice. Fabichensky, I haven't seen you for a while either. I hope you're well. Fabichensky thinks keepers age like wine, but in truth, they age like vinegar. Zuma should tell him Marcellus Wallace style. George, excuse me a second. Yeah, just water tonight. It's been a shit day at work. Can't afford a drink. George, Moyes has shown that if he is given the time and the proper player buying support, he builds a steady ship and moves the club forward. 3 years in Europe. Yeah. And that, interestingly, I said in the show I did this morning that I think what Steinen has done has been quite clever because Steinen doesn't come in and try and force players on Moyes. They talk about the positions they want. Steinen will know what kind of football style David Moyes plays, the kind of setup he has, etc. And what Steinen has done, he's facilitated that. He's gone, yeah, you need a central defensive midfielder. Let's go out for Alvarez. You need this kind of player. Let's go for him. We need Mavropanos, etc., etc. He hasn't tried, all those stories. And even I fell for it, to be quite honest with you, early in the transfer window. Moyes and Steinen aren't speaking to each other. They've fallen now. They're disagreeing on players, etc. Do you remember all the stuff that was coming out? And even I was reporting on it. It looks to me that Steinen's come in and these guys have got to work together for the best for the club. And I think they've done well. I think Steinen has come in. He's gone, yeah, you want that player? I'll go and get him for you. And he's done his part. And they kind of are talking about players. No way would you have heard a year ago that, someone like Steinen would recommend, a player like Mavropanos and Moyes to go, yeah, let's go for him. If without Steinen there, we would have had Maguire. maybe on loan or something, would have pushed it through. So fair play to Steiner. I think they are working together. And instead of working against each other, I think Steiner is going, right, what sort of player do you want? What position? Okay, no problem. Who have we got? And then we'll go and target that player. I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work. Will it work after this season? I don't know. Johnny, when they buy, and if they buy, then they buy our club with our rules and our people and fans, lock, stock and barrel. Yeah. When an owner takes over any business, unfortunately, it doesn't matter about the people, etc., etc. They will run it the way they see fit. You know, money talks. Keith, Mr. Doofus, I agree with you, but you know that won't happen. Mr. Doofus, Keith, Mr. Doofus, you know what I mean, Mucker. One person or group does not represent a country's politics. I don't represent the Tory party, for example. Yeah, good point. I get that. Montana. Chelsea raided Football Manager for the Wonder Kids, forgetting it's a hit and miss business. The Americans are blinded by statistics. Well, they will learn real quick. If not, their pockets will run out. Good evening, Foxes. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Ed. To Keith Knight. No, the money would be Qatari and not the personal wealth of an individual. Notwithstanding, do you think any Qatari who opposed the regime would become wealthy and influential? There's the other side of the coin. Ryan, worldwide teams is a good idea, but would have to be played in Europe and Western Asia because of the traveling would be too much. But imagine winning the £1 billion jackpot. This is the thing, though, Ryan. You know, I genuinely think if the Americans got their way to do a European Super League, the next stage of that would be, well, start playing games in America. You can see that happening. Look at what happened with American football when they started bringing it over to England. You know, there's an audience. We'll play some games. First, it was friendlies and stuff like that. You know, showcases. And now they're playing league games here. Who's to say that wouldn't happen the other way around with football? Premier League game in Chicago or something like that, or a Premier League game in, you know, somewhere in Saudi Arabia. Could happen. Funky Tea. I think West Ham are the only Premier League Bristow-owned club, British-owned club, and I'm proud of that. I would rather the devil I know in Sullivan than the Saudis. People have differences of opinion. There you go. Mice. Moyes from the Jurassic Age, but we don't need owners from the Middle Ages with oil money. Interesting debate. James, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. A brown kit would look... it would. Scott, most of us are just yammering back and forth with one another. Go on with the show. My back it's almost dead. Let's scroll down. Epic. Moyes is going to start the same players every game instead of rotating, and everyone will be knackered by Christmas. I said this earlier. I hope we don't make the same mistake as we did before. I really, really hope that come this January transfer window, we refresh, even if it's just one player. Even if it's just one player coming in, I really hope that happens, because the last thing I want to see, as you've just rightly pointed out, is for us to sort of run out of steam, and then the second half of the season becomes a dead rubber. Moisaurus, good evening to you. Mavropanos is a cross between George Michael and the Yeti. I can't wait to see him in the team. Interesting. Andrew, we really need to convince Paquetá to stay so we can build the side around him. With the new signings would be huge. If we can get to the Europa final in Dublin, there's got to be a realistic target. You know what? There's going to be some interesting. When I looked at some of the team, I thought, okay, it could have been worse. I think it's not the worst draw that we could have got, but it's not going to be easy. But I think we should get through it. But then it's going to be interesting to see what happens after the group stages and which teams fall down from the Champions League. Do you like that? The fact that teams fall down from the Champions League, they get a second bite of the cherry. I'm not so sure I do. Moisaurus, we won't see Luton in the Premier League for another 30 years. When we will have flying cars and aliens out in the open. Montana, Burnley hype from Sky. I thought they'd be Barcelona. Just tippy-tappy crap with no defence. We shall thump them. Just watch. Ryan, remember the old Holland kit? I think 1996-98, orange with Dennis Bergkamp. I printed into it. Imagine claret and blue with the Pac-Man imprinted into it. Yeah. So long as it's not orange again, please, please, please. Let's not ever have another orange kit. Lee. I'm a left wing fan. I wanted Harvey Barnes. Great show. Thank you very much. Harvey Barnes would have been interesting. I don't know what happened there. Apparently the interest was real and then it kind of fell away. Huge. Why don't we ever loan our players out to good teams in the Championship? They're always very lowly teams, not even non-league. Wickham Veg. That's the question I've asked. It's like, what's expectation do we have of the players that go out on loan? Some players, like maybe Freddie Potts, he started at Wickham. What I would expect next season is if he goes out on loan again, to go out on loan to a Championship team, or maybe even a promoted Premier League team, something like that. That's what I would expect. But if when we keep loaning them out, I think Trot, it's in his second year, I think, or maybe even second season at Vejle. It kind of implies, he signed an extended contract last summer. It kind of implies, though, that is he going to really get any game time? Is he going to be a future goalie for West Ham? Unless he's tested in a much tougher league like the Championship, we're never going to know. Martin, I didn't want a Lingard return, but let's take him on loan and use him to extend the size of the squad. Doesn't have to be it won't be a loan, mate, but sign him for a short-term deal. Absolutely. How far am I? Not far. So I'm going to scroll down so I can get on with the last part of the show. Scott, good evening to you. Super League will never take off because the Brits fund football. If we turn our backs on football, teams that join the Super League, who will fund it? TV money will. TV money will go where the stars are. And this is one of the big concerns about the Saudis at the moment. The more players they buy, the more lucrative it will become in order to televise it. It's a big, massive market over there. Massive market over in Asia, Middle East, etc. For football. They've got a ready-made market for it. They keep buying the players. TV money might go where the footballers are. At this moment in time, we've got it here. How long will that last for? There might come a day when the Premier League bubble bursts because something is better elsewhere. And if the Saudis take over, or if the Americans had their way with the Super League, etc., TV money will follow it. Then what? There'll be less TV money. As it stands, the Premier League is the best league in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. But there might come a point where, there were false dawns, as I said earlier. The Americans tried to do it. The Chinese tried to do it. The Saudis are now trying to do it. And it looks like they might be here to stay because they have an abundance of money. Ian, love the idea of owners buying the club. Could be exciting. Trodge, good evening to you. Problem is Qataris is the only way we get rid of the running track. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, possibly. Paul, Yank owners are the absolute pits. Can't stand them. They're only interested in taking money out of the club, as has been done at Man United. Look at the way the Glazers have absolutely screwed Man United. They're massively in debt. Epic. I want to see Mavropanos on the pitch before I say if he's even better than Maguire. Well, go and have a look at Go and have a look at some of the clips when he was playing at Stuttgart. He's very, very, very decent footballer. Good evening to you, Jason. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Funky T. Fourth in the league. Should we start talking about Champions League now rather than the Saudi takeover? Exactly that. We should be talking about how good we are. Actually, good pointer. I'm going to go into the game and talk about the game that we played. Because look, our fourth game of the season, 1 draw, 3 wins. We've yet to be defeated. What I'm a little bit upset about, if I really, really, really want to be picky, is we still haven't got a clean sheet. I thought that might have come against Luton on Friday night, but it didn't. Look, I think Kent said it. Intimate little stadium, their first ever Premier League game. I'm going to be honest with you. The first half was a little bit boring, to be quite honest with you. It was like, good grief. I was beginning to think, was it worth, because all the trains were on strike and I had to go and meet people. By the way, thank you to Edgware Hammers. Thank you to also to Paul for giving me a lift to the game on Friday. I completely forgot about that. Really, really much appreciated, Steph. For driving us there, Paul, etc. Really much appreciated. I kind of started to think, was it worth coming all this way? The game was a little bit boring. Then it livened up. Of course, Jared Bowen is really on fire. Great goal, good build-up play. Paquetá's little dink over for Bowen to run onto and head in was superbly taken. I think it was a fantastic goal. And that kind of set us up for the second half. It meant that Luton had to come at us. But we contained them. Interesting. We had something like 60-odd% possession. Whoa, imagine that, 60-odd% possession. I didn't think we had that much, but there you go. Those are the stats. there was a passage of play in the second half where we made something like about 30 odd passes. We kept passing it, moving, but there's an awful lot of sideways passes. We're trying to find a way. They were quite close knit. They had all the players behind. They did to us what we do to other teams. They just sat behind the ball, containing the pressure, etc. But there was a passage of play at one point where we looked so comfortable as a passing team. We could do it. The only thing, there was not a lot of there wasn't a penetrative pass, but we were passing it comfortably, etc. Nothing came of that passage of play. But I looked at that for a moment and thought, so we can do this. We can have possession. We can take our time. We can sort of try and look for an opening. We've got it in our locker, and I would love to see us do more of that. But I think we had the game won. It was pretty easy. Another set piece. Ward-Prowse, third assist in 3 games, 3 assists and 1 goal. I mean, what a start to his West Ham career. I think, when people talk about, oh, we should get striker, I'm like, I don't know. Yes, I would like a striker, absolutely. But I don't think we're going to have a problem with scoring goals this season. And it's very much like what happened a couple of years ago, where, goals were coming from midfield, they were coming from set pieces, etc. Moyes has gone back to doing that. He's brought Ward-Prowse in. Okay, he's not just a set piece expert, but he's brought Ward-Prowse in to get goals from set pieces. That's covered. And in terms of getting goals, in midfield, Bowen is beginning to do it. Antonio is doing it. We're beginning to get goals from a number of different areas on the pitch. Want to see a bit more from the likes of Ben Rama. Want to see maybe Soucek scoring a goal or two. Want to see Paquetá scoring a few more goals, etc. But we've got goals in us, and that's a big difference to what we had last season. Last season we were leaking goals and we weren't scoring. This season, I just like us to not leak any goals. I'd like us to go through a game without conceding a goal. But we've got goals in us. This hit and run type of football. All right, I know it's not to everybody's liking. But we kind of, we got a goal from a set piece last Friday, and we got a goal from a good build-up play and a little dink by Paquetá to Bowen. I think David Moyes has got a style that he knows is tried and tested. Against Man City, you are going to see backs against the wall, and maybe even away to Liverpool as well. You might see 11 behind the ball, try to contain them and then hit them on the break. The only danger with the likes of Man City and Liverpool, I thought we'd get the same from Chelsea, but that didn't materialise. They just didn't have any end product. But the difference with Man City and Liverpool is they have end product. So it's going to be a very, very different scenario when we play those two teams after the international break. Look, can we contain Man City? No, I don't think we can. I think Man City are too good to have a team sitting back and containing them. The more room you give them, the more they'll exploit you. So it's going to be interesting to see how we play against City. I think we will sit back, but if we don't allow them too much room, I think we might just be okay. We might just get away with it. We've got Alvarez. Alvarez has been absolutely immense since signing for West Ham United. And as I've alluded to in previous shows, and I said earlier on, having that type of midfielder in central defensive midfield is just what we've been missing for the last couple of seasons. The man is a machine. He covers that back line so well, and he covers so much ground. And I think it was Emerson. I think I said it in the show again this morning. Emerson said, even without the ball, he does so much running. And you can see he anticipates where his vision of where the ball is going is second to none. He can sense, or he can see what the build-up play is going to be, and he positions himself to get in there to help the defense clear the ball. He's been immense. He's going to be an absolutely fantastic player. So when it comes to containing the likes of Man City, we might just get away with it because we got players like Alvarez in the team. We also Ward-Prowse, who is also just not a set piece specialist. We saw it in the games that he's played. We saw it against Luton as well. He runs and he grafts. So does Alvarez. So does James Ward-Prowse. And I don't know if you remember me saying at the beginning of the season that David Moyes is going to go back to type. He's going to get. Do you remember when he first came to West Ham and needed to sort us out, and he got grafters in? He got players that could graft, and he's got that again with players with a little bit of flair. Ward-Prowse has got a little bit of flair. He's got more in his locker than a grafter. And now with the likes of Kudus coming in as well, managing to keep Paquetá as well. Paquetá, he's a bit of a grafter for a flair player. Moyes has got that kind of team that you think, hang on a minute, we could ground out results against teams like the Man Cities and the Liverpools of this world. And why not? We've got nothing to fear from them. Well, apart from Erling Haaland, where he's also a machine in a different kind of way. But it was good to see that we were in control of the game against Luton on Friday night. And the only upset, I think, is that we actually allowed them to score. I think we've got a really good team. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I think we will improve once that team galvanizes. Mavropanos coming in, Kudus coming in as well. I think we're going to see a very interesting West Ham United moving forward. Good evening to you, Clive. I hope you're well, mate. Good to see you at Brighton the other week. I hope you're well. I've had conversations with a few mates and they all agree that our recruitment has been exceptional this season. Would you have liked to have seen a striker come in, or would that not have been any good to us either way? Paul, when it's all thrashed out and we're taken over by the Qataris and we did go on to be the success, you can bet your house that 98% of people won't care who owns us. Yeah, maybe. You might be right. I don't know. I think there may be people that will have those standards and go, not for me. But I don't know. You might be right. If we're successful, then does it matter who owns us? Who knows? Andrew, I think Kudus and Bowen are going to be the backup strikers this season. I think so too. You know, the fact that we didn't buy a striker, I don't think it's the end of the world, to be quite honest with you, because I agree with you 100%. Kudus, it's not trying to fit in a square peg in a round hole. Kudus has played up front for Ajax and other teams as well. He can play in that position. Bowen, okay, we know he's more a wide player. Hello, Sushi. Bowen, we know he's more of a wide player, but Moyes fancies him to play up front. Eamon, fans need to get off Moyes' back, start to appreciate what he's done in the last 4 years, managing us. Anyone would think that this was a regular Champions League team before Moyes turned up. That's a really good point. I agree with you. You know, I think we've become a little bit spoiled, haven't we? Trini, let's be honest, since the European Cup has been called the Champions League, it's not for the champions now, and them letting teams drop down is to give bigger teams even more opportunities. Absolutely, I agree. It's such a shame, really. I like the old-fashioned way of the competitions. When you get knocked out, you get knocked out. You don't get given a second chance. Trini, TV money, unfortunately, funds most leagues. Not many big teams rely on fans through the gate to finance that anymore. Absolutely agree. Jason, Lawrence, what is Biden playing at? I see his last speech was falling over more than Ronaldo in his prime. How's it got onto politics? Andrew, if Lingard can replicate his previous form, I'd be happy to see him back. We're going to need a big squad this season, and a hungry Lingard will be a great asset. Agreed. Eamon, Lingard is washed up. He needs to be moved on. He's had a whole season at Nottingham Forest to play for a new contract, and all he done was sat back whilst picking up his big fat paycheck. He's got a lot to prove. He's got a lot to prove. Will he do it? That's probably why he's going to get a short-term deal rather than a long-term deal. Montana, with a lot of performance-related bonuses attached. It won't be, here's 100 grand a week, and then you can make it up to, it'll be like, here's 60, 70, maybe, and then you've got to earn your right to earn more money. Montana, but still, the Premier League is not the best because of all the marketable players here. Instead, it's the competitiveness of the clubs driven by fans. Saudis need to do a lot of the work to close that gap. Yes, they do. But if they continue to buy big players, who's to say that sooner or later that their leagues don't become as competitive as ours? You know, it could happen. It could happen. Clive, question. I've seen the videos of away fans going to Luton up the stairs. How do disabled fans get to the away end? Oh, no idea. There's no lifts or anything. It was as you've seen them, mate. It was. I think there is an entrance lower that you. Oh, I could be wrong. I don't know. I just went up the stairs. Didn't even think of that, actually, Clive, to be honest with you. Jason. Eamon, I agree, mate, but also I think he could go to Saudi and pick up more money. But the fact that he wants to play for Moyes and repay us fans is interesting. Good luck to him. I hope it works. You're talking about Lingard. Paul, then that would make you one of the 2%. My statement will stand true. If it happens for every one person opposed, there'll be 49 who won't care and will forget about their principles. Interesting point. Interesting point. Let's scroll down. Who else have we got? How far behind am I? Not far behind. Trini. If we allow Man City or Liverpool to have the attempts that Chelsea and Brighton have had, we will lose heavily. They won't waste that many chances. I agree, which is why we've got to be quite balanced, not sit too deeply. If we sit too deep, we're going to be in trouble. I agree with that. Steve, Moy said after Friday's game, we missed Souček. He better not drop Alvarez for Souček. It's going to be interesting to see who he plays if he wants Souček back in that starting 11. I don't know who he'll drop. Benrahma, probably. That's probably who will drop. He'll probably drop Benrahma and play Alvarez as well, and fill out the midfield. Probably that's probably what will happen. Steve again. I'm just worried Moyes won't use Kudus, and if that happens, he could be here short term, just like Skamaka. I think he will. I think he'll definitely use Kudus because he's not a striker. You know, so Moyes will know how to use him. Whereas if he bought a striker in, if Kudus was a striker, I would agree with that comment. He probably wouldn't use him as much as he should. But because Kudus is a midfielder who's an attacking midfielder who can play up front, I think Moyes will utilise him. Funky T. I think Antonio is not feeding in scraps anymore with JWP and Paquetá. Plays some lovely balls through the defence where he doesn't have to have his back to defenders. That's a really good point. Really good point. Martin. Still, you mentioned JWP. He's been a super signing, playing like he has played for us for years. Yeah, as if he's been playing for us for years. He's been fantastic fit, hasn't he? Absolutely superb. Paul, Alvarez is a beast. He is uncompromising and already understands the fabric of the club. He is aggressive in his tackles and interceptions. Just needs to tone that part down a little bit. What a player. Don't let him tone it down until he gets a booking. He hasn't had a booking yet. Oh, has he? Has he had a yellow card already? He may have done. Lawrence. How I do after action post on West Ham Unofficial on YouTube. Do you? I didn't know that, Lawrence. You should do a bit for me, mate. 69 Claret. Good evening. Love and under. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I want sign up, Lawrence. Email me. Alan, the thing that worries me with Antonio, the first 3 games he was terrific, putting himself in the shop window, but the other night he wasn't as good, and I think that's a transfer. That's a transfer. You know, we were joking about that during the game. We said the transfer window's about to shut. Antonio's gone missing. He didn't have the best of games against Luton, I must admit. Jason, I was doing the London debate show on YouTube years back around 2014 with a Chelsea lad, Tony Rolfe, Paul Cockney Pirlo. Don't know if you know him. I don't, to be honest with you, mate. No, I'm sorry. But interesting. Oh, you're another one that's been doing a few things. Ought to sign you lot up. I can't do this on my own forever. Mickey, watching from the start, so maybe you said already, but any news on a potential takeover? Talked it to death, mate. We've had about an hour on it where people have given their views. No, there isn't a potential takeover happening as far as I'm aware. I asked. I was told absolutely not. Nothing has changed since last time I asked the same question. You know, this story, as someone said, will go on and on and on and on for years to come. Jason, Stel, you wasn't meant to read the politics. Okay. Because I just pick them out. I don't read them until they're on the screen. Victor, word is Lingard will be on a pay-as-you-pay deal, which I think is good. He'll be on a basic, but it won't be a big basic, but it'll be on sort of a low basic and then bonuses in order to get him up to any kind of decent level of wage that he's accustomed to. Jason, got to give Stel reads all the message. Got to give it to Stel reads all the message. Yeah, I try. I really do try. It's not easy, and do forgive me for a lot of the messages that I miss out, but I really do try, and thank you for that. Wolf. If Lingard is on a pay-as-you-pay play, never let him play. Andrew, gonna be hard to stop Haaland. He's an absolute freak of a player. The Jonah Loam of football. Fred, not seen Lingard once in training videos. He's been spotted, I think, in a few photos, but he has been training with them. Manji, the disabled entrance at Kenilworth Road for the away end is through the front room of number 12. Usual. Let's forgive Lingard, and while we're at it, bring back Paul Ince as well. Good evening, Beats. How are you? Another person I've not seen for a while. I hope you're well. My worry is that, and if you have been on them, forgive me for missing you. My worry is that if any of the new guys get injured, that we end up being the West Ham of last season again. That's a good point. But all teams could go through injuries. But this is the strength in depth. People were asking, how is Kudish going to fit in? How is Mavropanos going to fit in? If we get injuries, they're going to fit in pretty quickly. Richard, how long do you give this Saudi Hoover up still? It doesn't look like any club is safe or keeping their prize players now. Yeah, it's interesting, Paul, Richard, to be honest with you. I think they're here to stay. And I think they're going to continue doing this across the board. They're going to be looking for players. You know, they're going to be looking for younger players, sort of like poster boys. You know, sort of those who are Muslim. You know, poster boy like Aguerd will fit the bill perfectly. Ben Rama will probably fit the bill perfectly, where they can be poster boys for those teams that part of the world. You know, and encourage more people to get into football over there. And I think they're going to keep going. Salah from Liverpool, you know, they wanted him. It'd be absolutely lucrative to that market. You know, they're going to want their poster boys in order to, and that wasn't my statement, by the way. That was Steph Edgware Hammers who said that. She said, you know, they're going to want poster boys in there to build up the momentum for getting that league off the ground, you know, and they'll probably do it. They're here to stay. I think they're going to be around for a long, long time. And we've got to be careful. We've got to be careful. Montana, still, where did the KUMB presenter go to? Who? I don't know. Which KUMB presenter do you mean? I don't know, mate, to be honest. I'm not going to read that one out. Trini, keep Haaland outside the box and he does nothing. That's the thing. Keep him outside the box. Beats, good still. Thanks for emailing back about the Scottish support. Did you manage to get in touch with any of them? Have they replied to you at all? Jeff, we may need a right back. Oops, we may need a right back more than the left back. It'd be nice to get both at some point in order to provide some cover for the players that we have. I've caught up. An hour and 51 minutes. You do keep me on my bloody toes. Thank you all very much. If there are stories coming out, transfer window's shut now. You know, no stories to bring you. No gossip. You know, how boring is it going to be? Oh, I guess I'm going to bloody do a show on the Qataris. I'm going to look up all the information, get more info, and then tell you all a load of crap that isn't true. How about that? Look, thank you all for watching. Much appreciated. Do have a wonderful week. It's going to be hot, and I love the heat. The other half is moaning because it's going to be too hot. Sod that. It's going to be wonderful and hot. Do have a great week. Enjoy the international football. We could talk about that if you like, but I'm not bothered because there's no West Ham player in the England squad. Have a great week. I will come back. I'll do some pre-recorded shows about any topics of interest. But otherwise, thank you for taking part. Really appreciated. Sorry I can't read out every single comment. Otherwise I'll be here all night. Have a great week, and I'll see you all very, very soon.